You're listening to the Kiwi Tripsters Travel Podcast. The inside word on all things travel. Buckle up as we explore New Zealand, take you abroad, dive into virtual travel, and inspire your bucket list with spectacular tips and tricks. We've got the world covered. Tune in on Apple's podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or iHeartRadio, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Be sure to like and share our podcast so everyone can enjoy the inside word on all things travel. And now, here's your host from Christchurch, New Zealand, Mike Yardley and Chris Lynch.
Welcome aboard to another exciting episode of Kiwi Tripsters. I'm Chris Lynch. G'day, Mike.
Hi, Chris. Yes, Mike Yardley with you, and very good to have you aboard for another episode. Now, shortly, we are going to showcase a great Kiwi destination, Chris's trip to the Mackenzie. But first, as winter is biting, one of the most popular South Pacific holiday destinations, the Cook Islands, which is COVID-free.
You're not wrong there, and a lot of us are just waiting for this Trans-Pacific bubble to open, not just the Trans-Tasman bubble. So let's breeze our way through the beauty and visit the delights of Rarotonga, because it is absolutely beautiful, and it's one of those places when you look on the internet and you see beauty, it is exactly that when you land.
It certainly is. Yeah, what's on the tin turns out to be what really is the case in reality. Chris, I know you've been there, and I reckon it is the ultimate destination of the definition paradise made easy, particularly from a Kiwi perspective, because they deal in New Zealand dollars because, you know, they're part of the realm.
Yeah, you don't have to think.
No, you don't have to think. It is such an effortless, easy to get around place. You were there, a couple of years ago? What did you think of it?
Loved it. Absolutely loved it. I stayed in what I suppose you could sort of call a whale, one step up above from that. Lovely. I mean, the beach I was staying at was not the most swimmable beach, but you know what? You hire a scooter, and further on down the road is a beautiful snorkeling kind of lagoon, if you like, owned by a couple of Kiwis. And it's the sort of place where you can get around in a scooter. You can do the whole island on a scooter in 30 minutes, but you don't actually feel like you're turning a corner or going around. It's cool. It's lovely, and the people are friendly. It's a great place to go to.
Yeah, absolutely. That's right. And there's no language barriers. Even the dogs on the loose, which is a common sight in the Pacific Islands, the dogs on the loose in the Cook Islands are friendly. You won't get rabies off them. They won't terrorise you. I just think it is, such a chilled out, hassle-free place.
And you pay for what you get as well. There's lots of different types of accommodation, from your budget to your high end. You will pay for what you get. Yeah. And they are realistic too. So if you're online and you see a specific place you like, you're going to get that. They're very honest as well, very honest.
That is true. I'm a sucker for a good sunset, and the area around Aotearangi denotes the sunset coast of Rarotonga. It's not the main tourism hangout, which is Muri Beach, further down on the south coast, but I really like Aotearangi because they've got a lot of really authentic boutique accommodation options and the best spot for those sunsets. And similarly, because there's so much tourist and hospitality located at Muri, you're only 15 minutes away from Aotearangi to Muri. And frankly, during the peak visitor season, as we used to know it before COVID, if you're after peace and solitude, being 15 minutes away from Muri can actually be a very good thing.
Lots of restaurants as well to choose from for any budget. What did you like?
Well, I really want to give a special mention to Antipodes, which is just north of Aotearangi, sort of on the way to the airport from Aotearangi, and it's perched on quite a high cliff top, wrapped in rainforest with the most sublime ocean views. The setting is so dramatic. When you first walk into this restaurant, Antipodes, you would think you've been transported to the Amalfi Coast of Italy. It is just so stupendously Mediterranean in terms of those high cliffs, those ocean views. And in fact, the restaurant itself is housed in a grand Mediterranean-style villa. You are so high up, I felt like I had been transported to the Amalfi Coast. And the only difference, I suppose, is you've got, Polynesian culture all around you. But yeah, it's been totally refreshed in the last year or so. And it's Kiwis who actually operate it. But if you like your Italian-style shared boards and platters, that sort of thing, yeah, you'll absolutely love Antipodes.
When it comes to the cocktails in the evening, for me, I just went to the 2 local pubs. They were good enough for me. But there are some, if you want to go high end, once again, it's all there for you.
Yeah, very much it tailors to, what your budget is. But if you want to do a bit of cocktail hopping, I did this last time I was in Rarotonga a year or so ago. You can actually do sort of like a hop-on, hop-off excursion around various beachfront hot spots. And it is fabulous fun. You will go on a Vespa. It's sort of like a 4-person Vespa. And they'll take you to a lot of discreetly tucked away night spots around Rarotonga. I called into Shipwreck Hut for a pina colada. It has previously been voted one of the best beach bars in the world by CNN. And the bar staff there alone sealed the deal. They're just so larger than life. Another really good haunt is on the beach bar at Manua Beach Resort. And I also really liked Wilson's Beach Bar, which is part of Castaway Villas. And they've got like bonfires on the beach. You can sip on sundowners and nibble on your yakitori skewers. I ordered up the most amazing cocktail, Chris, called Blow Me Up. A most extravagant cocktail comprising a variety of hard spirits, liqueurs, hazelnut and chocolate sauce. It sort of like doubled it as a dessert along with a cocktail. It was a meal. It was a feast. It was fabulous.
I'm hungry now. Now, to get across to the bars, you don't necessarily have to stumble your way. There's always different options there. Not a taxi as such, but something kind of similar.
Yeah. The Vespa I was talking about, it's actually run by a company called Tick E-Tours, and they have like a tuk-tuk, which is actually a really stylish Vespa. And this enterprising tour company, run by Kiwis Carl and Tanya, they also offer a variety of guided sightseeing experiences on their fleet of these electric tuk-tuk Vespas. Fabulous fun. They've also got e-bikes for hire. And, of course, Raro is ideal for e-bikes.
Yeah. Tried an e-bike once. Felt guilty to be on one because you feel like you're cheating, but they're great fun. And you're right, e-bikes will be at the perfect.
When you throw them into turbo mode, oh, my goodness, it is amazing, particularly if you're going uphill or if you've got a headwind. You throw the e-bike into turbo mode and, it's like suddenly you've grown wings.
Then again, just buy a scooter, for goodness sake. What's hot in the lagoon?
Well, Ariki Adventures, they operate the Turtle Sea Scooter Safari, and this is such an amazing way to embrace the grace of hawksbill and green turtles that permeate the waters of the Cook Islands. These sea scooters are surprisingly weightless in the water, so you sort of hold on to them and they will propel you through the water and deeper down with your snorkeling gear on so you can float alongside the turtles. And the group that I was with, we scooted into a 30-metre trench. It was like a coral canyon, absolutely abuzz with turtles. At the end of the lagoon trench, as it nears the ocean, we spotted eagle rays cruising deep below us. So yeah, the marine life around Rarotonga is just beautiful and bountiful, with all of those technicoloured tropical fish in the lagoon. And Ariki Holidays, who operate these turtle sea scooter safaris, they are an ingeniously family-owned business, and it's a great adventure pursuit in Murray's Lagoon.
Now, what about mixing with the locals? What's a good pastime?
Well, if you want to replicate one of the great Rarotongan family pastimes, head to Wigmore's Waterfall, which is also known as Papua Waterfall. It only flows after you've had like some really heavy downpours in Rarotonga, but it's got this lovely natural pool at the base of the waterfall that you can have a splash in. There are a lot of mozzies, so be sure to pack your mozzie spray because they are voracious. After taking in the waterfalls, head to Wigmore's Superstore for an ice cream. And for generations in Rarotonga, the waterfalls and the ice cream combo has been Rarotonga's #1 post-church Sunday afternoon family outing. Well, a pocket of the world you could never get tired of is the majestic Mackenzie district. Just 2.5 hours drive from Christchurch. Chris is fresh back from the region. He's actually got a skip of snow on his trousers, I've noticed.
Well, it was actually beautiful weather, to be honest.
Oh, was it?
Beautiful blue sky, crystal clear waters. It was just divine. And I was lucky enough to go when it was just before Queen's birthday weekend, so it was really, really quiet. Mm-hmm. And when you go to, anybody listening to this podcast would know, if you go to Lake Tekapo during a public holiday, there are so many people.
Yes.
It's overrun with human beings, but I was lucky enough to go when there was hardly anybody there. A magical experience.
Yeah, it would be quite novel, absolutely.
It was.
Where did you stay in Tekapo?
I stayed at a beautiful B&B called Ranganui B&B. It's pretty luxurious, I must say. It's got panoramic views of the lake and the majestic Southern Alps. And in the morning when I'd wake up, you'd open the doors and you'd see the lovely fog that would just go over the lake. It was just truly beautiful.
I love that. Yeah.
It was really, really nice. The hosts were fantastic, Anne-Marie and Sabe. They make you feel so welcome. And the house that I was staying at, it's pretty newly built. You know, a lot of Airbnbs, you sort of often think of villas. This was quite a flash, fancy, newly built home. And depending on your mood there, you can have as much privacy or as little as you like, because the hosts are just fantastic. And what I love about the hosts is they really appreciate their surroundings as well. They keep telling you how appreciative they are to have built that place. And it actually makes you want to enjoy it even more, if that's even possible. It had a decent sized lounge and the dining area for the guests to enjoy the views, and a beautiful toasty gas fire. And of course, with Lake Tekapo, it's a UNESCO dark sky reserve. So of course, all the surrounding residents have to have their lights a specific wattage, if you like, and a specific kind of...
It's highly regulated, isn't it?
Yeah, highly regulated, but for all the right reasons, because you just have to look up and you see the most amazing, stunning views of the southern skies. But my friend and I, we decided to go down to the church to get a good view of the lights, the stars rather, and we felt a bit silly because when we got back to the Airbnb, you just have to look up and there's the beautiful stars. We didn't need to actually go in the cold, couple of blocks away to the church. But I think with Lake Tekapo, it's the sort of place you can go for a weekend or even longer.
Yeah.
The internet reception's slightly dodgy, so you're forced to get off the internet and just enjoy the surroundings.
Very restorative.
Oh, look, it was. It was, and I felt like I was in my own little wee well-being bubble. No, it was after the bubble. But what I did notice, which is really humbling to see, when my friend and I were passing back through Lake Tekapo after being elsewhere, on the Sunday of Queen's birthday weekend, the town was humming. Right. It was doing a roaring trade, and it was nice to see. And of course, just all Kiwis. But, we bypassed that because we just did it on the weekday where there was nobody around.
Now, from Tekapo, you cruised around to Lake Pukaki, and you took a million photos there, which I have been admiring, I have to say. Was the weather behaving at Pukaki?
Well, as you can see from the photos, blue sky, crystal clear days. We did get lucky. And I've got to say, if it was overcast, probably wouldn't be as nice. Let's be honest. But it was just fantastic. And then, we stopped off the beaten track, if you like, several times, take some photos of Mount Cook that we could see in the background. And us, along with a few others, would stop and say hello to other people who, were stopping off as well. And they said they had to cancel their overseas trip. Some were off to Europe, some were supposed to go to Bali, but they thought, well, we can't go there now. We'll do a South Island trip. And a lot of them were actually returning from the likes of Queenstown or Mount Cook and returning back home to Christchurch, and said they just felt really lucky. And they actually felt a little bit ignorant of just how beautiful the South Island really is. I mean, we stayed at the...
Lakeside Lodge, was it?
We did it later on, but we stayed at the Aoraki Court Motel.
Yeah.
And it doesn't sound fancy, does it? But it was fancy. You wake up and you look at beautiful views. This is now in Mount Cook Village. Yeah. Beautiful views of Mount Sefton. It's just truly spectacular. You wake up and think, this is New Zealand. And you can't help but feel relaxed. You can't help but feel relaxed.
So Lakeside Lodge, because I remember I was really struck by your photos of that lodge, to the point that I'm actually going to go there next week. I was so impressed. Whereabouts is that?
That is a beautiful, this is the Lakestone Lodge.
Lakestone, yes.
Yeah, Lakestone Lodge. It's on the hillside just above the shores of Lake Pikaki. It's pretty discreetly positioned just off Highway 8 between, I suppose, Queenstown and Christchurch. And, it's probably what you could describe as the ideal base to explore the likes of the National Park and around Mount Cook and Lake Aho Valley as well. Look, the lodge is pretty easily accessible by car, but if you want to be fancy about it, you can do it by helicopter if you like. There's the helicopters that are around there. And once again, this is also one of the country's only international dark sky reserves as well. So on the clear night, you can just sit in your hot tub in the beautiful bathroom, and you've got a private courtyard. You can look above and you can see the beautiful lights.
That's actually a very good point to make. I think a lot of people perhaps misconstrue that it's only Tekapo that is the dark sky reserve, but it's that whole Mackenzie district right through to Twizel.
It is. And the hosts, once again, Mike and Anna, lovely, extremely welcoming. They're keen for you to make it your home, but they also give you the privacy that you're after when you're on holiday. And I think they've got about 6 contemporary rooms, all very homely, no TV, but you don't need the TV because you look out there and you see the beautiful Southern Alps. That they're usually cushioning with clouds. And then another layer of the lake, and then the layer of the grass you see outside with the tussocks. It's just, my goodness.
Elemental.
It's beautiful. And I miss it. Thinking about it now, I thought, wow, imagine just living there.
We will put Chris's photos up on our Kiwi Tripsters Facebook page because they are so amazing. At the head of Pukaki, you've obviously got that slithering tongue of Tasman Glacier dipping into the waters, into Tasman Lake, which feeds into Pukaki. Did you head up onto the glacier?
We did. We went to the Mount Cook village and we got a good deal with one of the tourist operators there. And can I just say, by the way, he was telling us he's lost about 99% of his business.
Wow.
We did the flights about $150. Which is, incredibly cheap. $150 for a half-hour ride on a helicopter, landing on the base of the Tasman Glacier. Usually it's about $400 or $500. So I would recommend people keep an eye out on their Facebook page because all these local tourist operators realise they have to change their market in the meantime, and they'd rather have customers than not. And so what they're doing at the moment, if they can fill the helicopter, you may, and maybe there's a seat there, you may get it cheaper. If they can't fill the helicopter and it's you and your partner, it may be more expensive. But keep an eye out on all the local Mount Cook operators because they've got fabulous deals. And let's be honest, when the borders reopen, they won't always be $150.
Exactly.
It's just incredible. I could
seize this opportunity.
It's amazing.
Quite a novel, unusual, probably never to be repeated opportunity, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, take advantage, folks. Really take advantage.
Very quickly, I think you went trekking, you stretched your legs, went on a hike. Where was that?
That was at we went to the summit of Lake Aho Valley. I can't lie. We took a car, a 4-wheel drive actually to get up there. You just have to ask the locals and they'll let you go up there for free, by the way. And then we had a lovely picnic, by the way, that was all beautifully handcrafted
I got the impression you were like a mountain goat all day.
Don't be silly.
Straddling the old pine.
Oh, no, don't be silly.
Oh, okay.
But we'll put the notes as to who you can contact to get access because it's a private road.
Yes, we will.
Then 3.5 hour walk down. Once again, beautiful views that you don't get unless you're only in the Mackenzie country.
So you did do a 3.5 hour walk?
Yeah, we walked down.
That's very impressive.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
And I was a man of the earth.
Yes.
I was drinking the water from the lake that you could do. But in the process, I lost my very expensive BP sunglasses in the lake.
You polluted the lake.
I polluted the lake with my BP plastic sunglasses.
Camper.
I'm very sorry about that. But as I was kneeling down, they fell off into the lake.
Never to be seen again.
Never to be seen again. It was a terrible moment, but they were only cheap, so there we go.
Well, if you buy some Mount Cook salmon that look a bit unusual, they might be wearing Chris's sunglasses.
Oh, no, I shouldn't have said that. Never mind.
Sounds fantastic. So, we will put Chris's tips up on our show notes. And if you want to check out the images of some of those lodges and experiences, they'll be on the Kiwi Tripsters Facebook page.
Let's travel further afield. We're off to Budapest next.
You're with Kiwi Tripsters, and we turn our attention to the international travel outlook with one of the leading operators in the travel trade. With us from World Journeys is Director Chris Lyons. Chris, thank you very much for joining us.
Mike, it's my pleasure to be here.
Chris, for those unfamiliar with World Journeys, which I know is a privately owned New Zealand business, give us a bit of a thumbnail sketch of who you are, what you do.
Well, my business partners and I have been in the industry for 30 plus years. We all worked together in another organisation, and then around about 14 years ago, we decided to start World Journeys up. We could see an opening in the market here, so we're a company with 22 dedicated travel professionals. We specialise in Africa, Latin America, the Indian subcontinent, Canada and Alaska, Indochina, Central Asia and the Middle East. We do some Europe as well, but we're not Australia, we're not the USA, apart from Alaska.
You like it exotic, obviously.
Love it exotic. And one of the reasons that we have done so well as a company is that we have experts in those destination areas here. So when a travel agent calls us up or a member of the public, they can talk to someone that really knows the destination.
Fantastic. And as someone like yourself, Chris, who is no stranger to the travel business, its highs and lows, how uncharted has this whole COVID crisis been to try and navigate from a trade perspective and client care perspective?
Yeah, Mike, it's there's no question that COVID-19 hit the travel industry like a thunderbolt. We were, to a degree, the canary in the coal mine. We could feel the effects of COVID-19 coming, I would say, 4 to 6 weeks before the general public realised just what an impact it was going to have on everyone's lives. Fortunately, World Journeys had a disaster plan in place for many years for just this sort of situation. So we implemented it really early on, and having that plan in place helped us enormously because we had a structure, we had an organisation that could move very quickly. And I was looking at some other companies that were running around a little like headless chooks, and delighted that we had that plan in place. Look, it hasn't been an easy time, especially in the early days when things were changing so fast. It proved a real challenge to keep on top of all the changes with borders closing, airlines pulling out, and also the conditions, the deferment or cancellation conditions being imposed by airlines also changed a lot, almost every day. So it was very challenging for the industry early on. But things have settled down now. We continue to work on deferred bookings and are starting to get some green shoots of recovery with people starting to make inquiries for next year.
Fantastic. I was wondering about that. So you are seeing that upswing and an interest ahead to 2021?
It's slow, but Kiwis are inveterate travellers, and it's, you know, that they are. We have travel agents calling us or clients calling, just itching to get away. When can we leave? But it's going to take, you know, in my mind, a vaccine for COVID-19, or at least some good medication, is going to be the deal breaker, because until people feel that they can travel, and New Zealand, of course, has been so successful in eliminating it, that we are in a very safe, secure little bubble here. But I'm very much in the camp that by the end of this year, there will be a vaccine.
And in terms of the dynamics of the whole travel industry, obviously, you know, for a seasoned pro like yourself, you've seen the rise of all of these aggregators, shall we say, in the last decade or so. I just wonder if COVID is going to create a really big inflection point in terms of how a lot of people are going to travel in the future, and perhaps they'd placed a huge amount of faith, trust, maybe misplaced, in aggregators and do-it-yourself bookings, all care, no responsibility, and are now going to think twice about where is the backup, where is that client care if everything goes pear-shaped while I'm away.
Look, Mike, there's never been a more important time for people to work with a travel agent. If you had booked your airline flights online or your hotels through one of the hotel booking companies that so prominently advertise on the television, you could be sitting waiting for days to talk to somebody to try and get some resolution. The travel agent took over that issue on behalf of the clients, and we have received, it's amazing how many messages of support and thanks and gratitude that we've received from our travel agent colleagues and also members of the public, because we came to their aid and sorted them out. It's, I think this, more than anything else, is going to see people who think carefully about what their plans are. They should really consider going through a travel agent in the future for just this sort of situation. And it's not just this. You get things like volcanic eruptions in Bali. You'll get a strike in Europe. Same deal applies. If you've booked, online with not via a travel agent, then you're on your own, and good luck trying to sort it out.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, what are you hearing about travel insurance going forward? Do you think the insurers are going to only reinstate cover when there is a vaccine or a medication? What are you hearing?
Well, the insurance companies have done what insurance companies do best and run for cover. They implemented in the very fine print after, I think it was the swine flu in about 10 years ago, they implemented a little clause in their policies saying that pandemics would not be covered. And this has caused an enormous amount of grief and unhappiness amongst the travelling public. I believe that they're probably, that's going to remain an exclusion. If you do have travel insurance and you travel overseas now and you become ill with COVID-19, you are covered, certainly by most companies that I'm aware of. But they will not cover you if you book something and lose your deposit or cancellation fees as a result of a pandemic like COVID-19.
Sure. In the meantime, Chris, of course, we can certainly keep dreaming about our future adventures. And what has always struck me about dealing and experiencing the World Journeys product is how highly personalised your journeys are. It's just so beautifully curated. Is that your big calling card? Is that your point of difference?
It really is, Mike. And again, as the move away from mass tourism, people going on a busload of 40 people, it's becoming more apparent that people are looking for the privately guided, privately curated, tailor-made programs where you have total flexibility. If you're out touring for the day and you're feeling a little tired, you can just come back early. You're not at the behest of a coach driver and 40 other passengers. So it is definitely the way forward, and it's one of our strongest selling points. Where that we do almost all of our programs are privately tailor-made, and indeed, it's can be very surprising. People will pay little more than going on a group tour to have all the flexibility and the comfort of a private guide, particularly if there's two people or more traveling as a little party together.
Absolutely. Yeah. My last World Journeys experience was to South Africa late last year. And I suppose South Africa itself was a reminder of how mercurial anything travel can be because, as you'll know, Chris, they had recently relaxed those pesky visa restrictions for New Zealand. So we were seeing this rebound in activity for South Africa. And then along came COVID. But, I mean, some of those safari experiences I savoured in South Africa through you guys, and then down to the Cape Winelands. It was just extraordinary. But I mean, there's so much of Africa that, for myself, I'm yet to explore. And I know that World Journeys has incredible offerings. Obviously, Kenya's very popular, Tanzania.
Yeah, they are. I mean, it is a life-changing experience to sit in an open vehicle with 3 million animals migrating past you. Just a most wonderful experience. But there's a lot more to Africa. You have North Africa and the Egyptian side of things. I took a small group last year to Ethiopia, and I've been to 180 odd countries. it was one of the most amazing, wonderful experiences I've ever had in my life.
Wow. Why so?
It's an incredible melting pot of religions. There are 110 million people live in Ethiopia. 65 million of them are Coptic Christians. And the spirit of the people, they have a different alphabet. Their time of day is different. I arrived last year, and on the window in the airport as we arrived was Happy New Year 2012, because they're on the Julian calendar. So there's 7 years and 8 months or something behind us. So that just typifies everything about the country. It was the most extraordinary experience. You have the people in the highlands, because a lot of Ethiopia is quite high, and the wildlife you get in the highlands, and then you go down to the very rich cultural lowlands area down towards the Kenyan border. It was the group that I took just were in the same mind as me. They all said they'd never been anywhere quite so extraordinary. So Ethiopia, fantastic. West Africa, Ghana, English-speaking, a fascinating country with all its slave history and the slave forts on the coast. Magnificent markets. Africa's a multi visit destination. You just can't do it all in one bang. And we often find that when people go to Africa, they will go back to Africa 3 or 4 more times because they get bitten by the African bug. I think it sounds like you've been bitten by it already.
I certainly have, yeah. And I suppose similar to Africa, South America has just so much extraordinary variety as well. And, through World Journeys, I've dabbled in Argentina and Peru. But man alive, there is so much to see. I know you've got an abiding love affair with all things South American. Where else would you suggest people look to fire up their wanderlust, Chris?
Well, I think my favourite country in South America is Ecuador. Now, Ecuador is a country almost identical in size to New Zealand. And like New Zealand, it's got all sorts of different diversity and landscapes and climates. You have the incredible Amazon jungle with everything. You're in Amazonia, a 30-minute flight out of the capital, Quito. With all that wonderful wildlife and butterflies and birds. You then go to the highlands, and the first ever World UNESCO Heritage listed city was Quito, the capital of Ecuador. And the old town in Quito is a historical gem, absolutely a historical gem. You then go down to the tropical Pacific coast, and a 90-minute flight off the mainland, you have the Galapagos Islands. So in one country, you can have the Amazon and the Galapagos that are both wildlife lovers' dreams and both completely different to each other. And you've got the rich Indian cultural heritage in the mountains along the Andes. So fantastic destination.
Sounds like a great mix, absolutely. People should be making their plans 2021 with worldjourneys.co.nz.
They should. The one thing I'd like to say is that because a lot of people have deferred from this year, because a lot of the destinations we deal with, particularly in Africa or some areas in South America, have quite small lodges and things. People need to start thinking about traveling now. And next year, a lot of the suppliers that we deal with have modified their booking conditions so that people can deposit, and if in the dreadful thought that COVID-19 may still be continuing, they can't travel, then there's flexibility to cancel. The travel industry is having to be very mobile and flexible to get through this terrible time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm sure we'll come out the other side, and I'm sure that spirit of travel will remain alive and well. In fact, I think there's going to be a lot of pent-up demand. So,
No question about it.
A lot of places may be very spookily quiet now, but bang, I think it's going to be all go next year. So,
absolutely, I'm totally with you, Mike.
Yeah, well, all the very best to you and your team. I know these are certainly extraordinary times, but great to talk to you, Chris, and you've certainly refortified my wanderlust, so let's get to it, but all the very best to you.
Pleasure, Mike. Thanks very much.
You're listening to Kiwi Tripsters. Gee, Chris Lyons, what an interesting man.
Absolutely, a real seasoned pro in travel. Now, we will be joined by some more leaders from the travel trade in the coming episodes of Kiwi Tripsters.
Awesome stuff. Speaking of global travel, let's indulge in what Mike's favourite things are to do, the bucket list planning, the destination this time, Budapest. What do you reckon? What are some of the biggest mistakes that people make when they head there?
Well, I think a very common complaint is, I wish I had more time. I think people probably underestimate just how much there is to do and see in Budapest. It is absolutely packed with temptations. Most of visitors only book a couple of nights in the city, and most people from New Zealand and Australia find themselves in Budapest to join a river cruise of the Danube, through to Vienna and so forth. But you really do want to give the city a few extra nights than just one or two if you want to soak up all of her top draws. And accommodation is still remarkably cheap by European standards, so it will be a great value destination in 2021.
I've got a friend who lives there, by the way, and she posts images of her going to work every morning. She works for the Red Cross, and it's like looking at something from a tourism magazine. It just looks beautiful, very orange colours, very rich. It just looks beautiful. And look, what is interesting, and we think our rebuild's taking a long time, they're still essentially a rebuild city, aren't they? They continue to rebuild from the walls.
Absolutely. 75 years on, reviving Budapest's full glory post-World War II is a constant labour of love. And they do have a very blood-stained history. You can literally place your fingers in the bullet holes of a lot of buildings. They finished a 10-year-long restoration of St. Matthias Church a few years ago, and it's an absolute gem. It was built 900 years ago, converted into a mosque by the Ottomans before reverting to its Catholic roots. Something really trendy happening not just in Budapest but everywhere. Pop-up bars in derelict buildings. So in Budapest, where there are buildings that are awaiting restoration, they've just been filled with pop-up bars. And in Hungary, they call them ruin bars, which I like. Ruin bars. One I went to is called Tarkweria, which was formerly the provisioning depot for Hungarian railways. So not a pretty place, but it's a great spot to down the local drop of Palinka, which is Hungary's much-loved plum brandy.
Now we're talking. The Central Market looks phenomenal.
It is definitely one of Europe's best, I reckon, Chris. It's a wrought iron colossus the size of 4 rugby fields, so mega market. Wow. The merchants sell everything imaginable and more. Make a beeline for the food stalls upstairs and stake out some of the authentic peasant dishes like goulash soup and langos, which is a fried flatbread, which I really enjoyed. Grab a high stall and enjoy a spicy sausage and a beer for about $2 New Zealand. Cheap as chips.
That is pretty good. Any other tasty hospo spots there?
Well, they've got this striking new futuristic shopping complex in Budapest called Belna, and it's shaped like a whale. Matt Damon actually walks through it in the Martian movie, and Belna is home to a stack of superb craft beer bars. Very big in Hungary, the whole craft beer scene. And there's no avoiding the Budapest love affair with cakes and pastries. And if you are into that sort of thing, a grand old institution is the Gerbode pastry shop on Vörösmarty Square. It's been going strong for about 200 years. So for a dose of decadence, that is a must-do.
Where was your favourite place to go?
Well, I think if you want that sort of panoramic, pinch yourself spot to take photos and soak up the Budapest vibe, right on top of Castle District is Fisherman's Bastion, and it's this medieval lookout with 7 turrets in honour of the 7 original Hungarian tribes. You can jump on a funicular to reach the hilltop, and the city's icons are laid out before you. And if you go for a soak in the Galert hot baths, take a walk up Galert Hill. It's named in honour of the city's patron saint, Bishop Galert, who was placed in a spiky barrel and rolled off the hillside, plummeting to his death during a pagan revolt. Very dramatic story. And the hilltop spot where it all happened also happens to be perhaps the best lookout over the entire city.
Now, I know you like your museums, and you went to something that I guess you could say was a powerful visit.
Yeah. There are a lot of museums in Budapest to choose from, about 90, but the most sobering, absolutely, is the House of Terror, which was the Nazi torture chamber, and then under the communists, it became headquarters for the fearsome secret police. Really powerful place to visit, so much history. Feels quite spooky, quite haunted. And I really like the Rubik's Cube exhibition. Mr. Rubik is one of Budapest's most famous sons, and they host the annual Rubik's Cube World Champs, which I think were deferred in 2020, so hopefully they'll be back on next year. The current world record, by the way, to crack Rubik's Cube, 5.2 seconds.
Really?
Isn't that amazing?
I don't
Boom,
think, for me, it would be
5.2
about
seconds.
5.2 months. But anyway, is it an easy city to get around?
Yeah, it is. Fabulous public transport. And the only thing about Budapest, if you are flying, is that it is not a major airport hub. So from New Zealand, you would probably look to fly into the likes of Vienna, and that's just a 3-hour train ride away. And as I mentioned before, it is a major hub for Danube river cruises. But if you're looking at doing a river cruise next year, and Budapest is the start or end point, as I say, add on a few extra nights because the city will reward you handsomely.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. After looking at my friend's page, you can only think it's the sort of place you need a few days to really appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us on Kiwi Tripsters. Keep up to date with all the information on our Facebook page or kiwitripsters.co.nz. Be sure to like us or subscribe to your podcast of choice.
Plenty of choices there, Chris. We will be back in a couple of weeks' time for a fresh episode. Take care.
See you soon.
And that's a wrap for this episode of Kiwi Tripsters. Liked what you listened to? Then join us for our next episode of Kiwi Tripsters, where we bring you more travel inspiration, giveaways, and insider knowledge with expert guests on the show. Connect with us on Facebook and Instagram, and visit us on kiwitripsters.co.nz. But most importantly, subscribe and comment on Apple Podcasts, and tell us what you think of our show. Till next time, safe travels.